Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Screen Freaks Podcast. I know, everyone calm down. Today, we have an interesting topic, a topic that, as my co-host Andrew can attest, I have been waiting to do for the past week now. We are going to be ranking our personal opinions, the first 6 Star Wars movies. So that would be episodes 1 through 6. And we're going to be explaining why we rank it that way, why we might like some movies, why we might not like some other movies. I want to start off by saying, I don't know about you, Andrew. I want to start off by saying, no matter how bad you might think that we're talking about these movies, I absolutely love all 6 movies. I would give all of them. I think the lowest one I would maybe give a 6.5, maybe a 7 out of 10. So I'm not saying that the last place movie for me is absolutely garbage. I'm just thinking about how much do I overall like them and how much do I remember them by. So that's what we're ranking them by. I want to start that off because I love all these movies so much, and I think all of them have a lot to offer, some more than others, and that's what I want to be talking about today.
Exactly. We're just going to be focusing on the 6 Star Wars movies, the first 6, so we're not really going to be focusing on 7, 8, and 9, or any of the other shows or movies that have been released. But yeah,
Mhm.
like G1 said, I also have a deep love for all Star Wars movies, so this isn't a love and hate, it's just simply really a comparison between the 6 of them together.
Yes. So I think why not just get it out there? What is your list? Rank all of them from worst to I say worst to best to worst. So we'll start off worst to best. So we'll start off which one do you like the least versus what is your absolute favorite? Go for it.
All right, my least favorite is probably going to be number 5, The Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
Next, following that, is probably going to be the first one, The Phantom Menace. Uh,
Okay.
the next one on that list is going to be Revenge of the Sith, or the third one.
Okay. Okay.
Next is going to be the sixth, Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
Number 4, A New Hope, coming in second. And in first, my favorite Star Wars movie is number 2, Attack of the Clones.
Okay. Okay. So, wow, I have a lot to say. Oh gosh. I warned him, by the way. I'm gonna nail him on one of these movies, and you know which one it is, Andrew. Um, so for me, I'm gonna go number one. So from worst to best, number one, number 6, number 4, number 2, number 5, and then number 3.
So we
That
do
is
have
my
some
list.
differences. We do have some
We have a
differences in there.
lot of differences. It's basically almost entirely flipped, slightly. So your number one is episode 2.
That is
My
correct.
number one is episode 3. Now, I think we should talk about number 2 because that's pretty high on my list and that's number 1 on your list. Now, I feel that number 2 is kind of underrated. I think that it gets a lot of hate. Um, I feel that the story that it tells is way better than some of the other stories, right? That one, so that's the one after Qui-Gon Jinn dies, we get to see some of a lot of Anakin and Obi-Wan adventures with two of my favorite characters. So absolutely love that. Um the romance scenes are kind of whatever. I'm not the biggest fan. You can definitely tell that the romance scenes were definitely there to establish how Luke and Leia get born, which I think is kind of the issue when you there's a limited amount of time that they have if you think about it, because Luke is already grown up by the time we get introduced to him in episode 4. Same with Leia, so there's not that much time, so it's a little bit interesting. um I would say my critique for it would be the romance scene. That's honestly the only thing I really have to critique about it. Um, I'm a big fan of the fight scenes in this. I absolutely love all the fight scenes in this. I don't know about you. What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think definitely one of my favorite parts is the whole clone army creation. because no one
Oh yes.
knows, no one knows about it.
Hmm.
I mean, obviously Sidious and Dooku know all about it, but I mean, in terms of the Jedi, Obi-Wan flies Kamino and finds out they have an entire army. So that whole surprise, and then that leads into so much more possibilities. Like we see so many personalities of the clones, and I mean, even at the end of number two, the with the Jedi, like through thick and thin, you can
Hmm.
tell already. Uh,
Hmm.
so that companionship already is great. Fight scenes I think are really great, especially the end with Count Dooku.
Hmm.
Uh,
That was a good one.
that's definitely one of my favorite fight scenes
Hmm.
between the Jedi there. I would agree the romance can be a little overdone between Padme and Anakin, but I think it had to happen. I think it had to
Yeah,
happen because
it was one of those things that, like, how do you explain how Luke, or because we know that Anakin is the dad, right? We knew that, right? From the original trilogy. Well, if you watched it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that could be a surprise to you. But I think for most of us, we watched it from the originals, then to the prequels, and they needed to explain that. So yeah, I kind of agree. The romance is kind of whatever. It is a little bit cringe. Um, but hey, it's Star Wars. We're not watching it for the romance, you know?
exactly, and I mean we see so many. I mean we see one really big change in Anakin's life, and
Mm,
without that romance there to justify such an absolutely drastic change,
yep.
it just I think would ruin the rest of the series.
Hmm. No, yeah, I think so. My all-time favorite character is Anakin Skywalker slash Darth Vader, right? I know that we're not talking about this, but if you guys watch the Clone Wars show, which I hope that we do a coverage of not only the Clone Wars but the entire like prequel era, because I really love that era so much. You get to see so much like of Anakin's character grow, and part of that is, in episode three, I'll trust me, I will talk about this later. One of the reasons why I love Anakin's character is because he doesn't like want to go to the dark side. He's kind of manipulated into that, right? And part of that was what was happening with him and his mother, right? His mother got killed by the I forget the name of the people who did it, but he then just slaughtered all of them, right? I think even like the younglings too, right? He like slaughtered just everyone in that village, right? Obviously not something that a Jedi should do, and you know that, right? As a viewer, that's not what a Jedi is supposed to do, but still, it's one of those you feel bad. I mean, obviously he did something bad, right? He did kill people, but you almost
Just a
you
little
do
minor
relate to it.
thing.
Just a minor thing, yeah, but
Just killed a few people there. Not that big of a
but
deal.
like you relate to it though as well. That's the thing that I think. I mean, do I endorse killing people who killed your mother? No, I don't think that's the right thing to do. But you can understand why he did it, right? And I think that that's an important thing. This movie starts with the transition into Darth Vader. It's not nearly as bad as Episode 3, but it kind of starts it, and um, that's one of my favorite parts, honestly.
Yeah, we definitely see that tension growing with the
Hmm.
council in episode two. I know he expresses a lot of frustration with Obi-Wan Kenobi to Padme in that room. Um, so it's definitely the formation there. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely.
So I would like to ask you, where did you rank number one again? Because I kind of forgot.
Number one was my least or second least favorite movie
Okay,
in
that is
front of
something that
five.
we have similar. Yeah, we have something similar to that because I have it as my least favorite. Now, again, I don't hate episode one. I would still give it a good like 6.5 out of 10, maybe a 7. Um, the reason it's last for me is I feel like it's kind of slow in some bits, right? So this is the movie, obviously, where we get introduced to Obi-Wan Kenobi, a big character, especially Anakin Skywalker, like the most important one. Um, we also get introduced to what I actually really like. I didn't think we were going to get this, but C3PO. Now, I love
Right.
C3PO. Seeing his origin in this, honestly, kind of unexpected. Really like it. Um, however, it it's really political, and you know, I'm kind of a guy. I don't really care for politics. I probably shouldn't say this on the internet, but I kind of just don't really care for politics, and I especially hate politics in movies. And this just like some of the dialogue between the characters was so slow. Um like there were some cool scenes like getting to see Naboo, um the race of Jar Jar Binks. I forget the name off the top of my head.
The Gungans.
Yeah, the Gungans. Yeah, it's kind of just it's cool, but it's kind of whatever for me. I'm not like the biggest fan of it. I think for me the thing that I think everyone knows why this movie is pretty good though. It's the Duel of the Fates scene. I mean, that carries the movie so hard. Like honestly, without the Duel of the Fates, I would probably rate this movie below a 5 out of 10. I won't even lie.
Quick question:
I don't know. What do you think?
are you a Gungan Jar Jar fan, or are you on the side that is like, oh, he's too cringy, and no, we can do without him?
Um, okay, I actually like Jar Jar because I see this as like, episode 3 is such a dark film, right? I mean, everything goes to, crap, right? But this is kind of like the introductions of all the characters and stuff like that. So it's supposed to be not as dramatic as the later movies. And especially again, most people I'm assuming who have seen Star Wars watched 4, 5, 6, then went to 1, 2, 3. I think that it it's almost like for me it reminds me of like the Harry Potter movies, how they kind of start off like kind of childish and friendly, like oh magic and stuff, and then by the end it's like death and darkness, right? um I think that the his kind of silly cringe character is like supposed to be like that, kind of like a kind of chill relaxed vibe, not like too crazy at the moment for the first movie. um Although I think they do a little bit too chilly because it's a very boring movie at some points. But I actually like Jar Jar Binks. I know that they recently did something like a Darth Jar Jar, it's like a weird like Lego spinoff with like Darth Jar Jar, and I'm interested to see that. Um, no, I like it. I like it.
I'm able to do you one better here. I think in the rest of the movies, there is always that comedic relief, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
with
C-3PO.
thank you, and
Mm-hmm.
R2D2.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they don't have that chemistry yet in episode
No.
one.
Yep.
So Jar Jar definitely takes that place where he's more or less that comedic relief, and I happen to enjoy him. I
He's
think he's
fun. He's fun.
yeah. I'm not gonna say he's the best character, my favorite character, but I keep him. I definitely keep him in there. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and he has a good character arc that we see really play all the way through number or episode 3, Revenge of the
Mm-hmm.
Sith. So number 1, he's just utter clumsy. And number 3, he's taking Padme's role as senator and speaking before the entire Senate.
Yep.
Um,
Nope.
so number 1 really sets him up nicely in that way.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I want to move on to. We've talked a lot about the prequels, which again, I could do an entire episode about the prequels. I love the prequels. We need to talk about the original trilogy, and for me, my second lowest, which again I still love, Episode 6. I find Episode 6 low-key kind of boring in a sense. I'm not going to lie. It's it has a satisfying conclusion, right? Kind of, and for it being a movie in the what 70s or 80s, it felt kind of, it was a lighter moment than Empire, which I think Empire Strikes Back, I'm gonna call it Empire. That is such a big kind of movie. Like there's so much that goes on. Um, I feel like this one is just kind of like, and I'm not like the biggest fan of it, I guess. I will say some of the best points. I think I like the Battle of Ender. That was a good one. I love that the one person that could bring Anakin Skywalker back to the light side is Luke Skywalker. Um, I want to say something. I'm gonna bring this up if we ever talk about Star Wars again. And I know we said we're not talking about this, but I like how later on in the Kenobi show we see that Kenobi breaks one half of Darth Vader's face,
Yeah,
but
yep.
then Ahsoka in I believe it was Star Wars Rebels breaks the other half. So both halves of Darth Vader's face have been broken off, or mask, I should say. But neither of them were able to truly bring Anakin. But Luke Skywalker is the one to fully take off the mask, revealing Anakin Skywalker back. I will say that is probably the biggest part about the movie that I absolutely love. Again, I'm more of a Anakin Skywalker fan than I am a Luke fan. I think Luke is kind of he doesn't get as much of a character development as Anakin. I feel like he's kind of plain in comparison. Um, but I will say seeing him like complete his Jedi training, make a lightsaber that was inspired by Ben Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think that that was really touching. But it's kind of just boring. It's another one of those like, yay, the suit that the heroes did it, woohoo, kind of thing. Like I'm not the biggest fan of it. Like outside of Anakin's like resurrection and the story that Vader and Anakin played, I kind of just find it's kind of boring. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'll be honest, 6 was kind of fighting for that second place in my list. I
Hmm.
really do enjoy Return of the Jedi.
Hmm.
It is a bit of a reskin of number 4 with the whole Death Star and going in, having to destroy it,
Yep.
but it's got a couple of really nice twists,
Hmm.
such as the um, Endor with the shield generator on there. I think,
Yeah.
like you
Hmm.
said, that allows another great fight scene. I am also in the camp of enjoying the Ewoks there as well.
Yes.
Um,
Hmm.
I mean, dude, how can you say no to like some murderous teddy bears in
Oh
the
God, yeah.
forest there?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
you gotta expect some natives,
Hmm.
some wildlife on the planet, and what better creatures to pick than them?
Hmm.
So on top of that, uh, like you were saying, we see that whole arc finally come to a conclusion with Luke and his dad. You see some really conflicting uh, mentalities there, where Vader almost can't kill his son, and his son
Hmm.
can't kill his dad.
Hmm.
Uh, they try. I mean, it gets maybe a little showy, and
Hmm.
then you have to consider that Vader really can't afford for his light side to come out in front of Palpatine. So to just imagine how deep he's buried that, and kind of when you
Hmm.
come to realize that, you know, at the end when Vader's lying on the ramp to the ship, and he's like,
Oh.
"Son, you were right. There was good in me,"
Hmm.
kind of thing. So
Hmm.
when you think
Yep.
back, you're like, "Oh, Vader's like actually been suppressing that
Yeah.
in front of Sidious or the Emperor." So that's
I'm telling we need to do another episode just about Vader, man. Oh my goodness.
exactly. And then you have the whole Tatooine scene with Jabba the Hutt and like all of our heroes, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Luke comes out swinging there, all of his like not even trained Jedi skills, because he never went back to Yoda between 5 and 6. So this is
Yeah.
all stuff he learned on his own.
Yeah.
Um,
No. I think
he goes back. It's awesome. They rescue Han. So I think we get a lot of everything in
I think so,
Episode
yeah.
6. We get some great fight scenes, uh, great scenes in the in space in the stars,
Hmm.
some good comedy. I think C3PO and R2D2 really make a comeback from their failed
Yes.
performance in 5, where they're
Hmm.
um, helpful and they're being funny again. And so it's awesome.
Now I love that. Speaking of a movie that I think that this is kind of similar to, in a sense. Well, not really. I hate the reason why I don't like episode 6 is because it basically is just, yeah, we have to take down the Death Star again. Which originates from episode 4, which I rank overall as my fourth favorite movie. Um I think it's slower paced than usual. I think episodes 3 and 5 I like because there's so much happening in the movie. Um, this one is kind of like episode 2 where there's still enough action, but it's a little bit slower for me, only because I so part of it is I can't even blame it because this was actually the first one as well. The first ever Star Wars movie. So I can't blame it too much, but I think that it's a good introduction to Star Wars as a whole, right? Um, it definitely feels like, I will say, like you. I think out of all the six movies, or even if we're counting the sequel trilogy, out of all the six movies, I think that Luke Skywalker is the best in Episode 4, only because we relate to him the most, right? Like he's talking about like a lightsaber and he's holding a lightsaber and it's like so like whoa, there's a lightsaber that can like what, like that's awesome. um I think we relate to him the most. I think that the kind of Obi-Wan train. I love Obi-Wan in this movie. I'm a big Obi-Wan fan. I like how he's kind of hinting that there was more to Star Wars, right? Like I obviously wasn't alive back when this first came out, but I could imagine people like wondering what was the Clone Wars, right? Um, I just find it so. It was a good movie. I just think that it's a little bit slower paced than what I would think. I feel like there were some scenes where it could kind of it there really didn't need to be a reason for it to be there, I guess you could say. I will say one of my favorite bits from the scene was the trash chute scene where they're stuck in the garbage and the walls are like closing in.
Oh yes.
That was a funny one. I absolutely loved that one. I oh another favorite. I C3PO R2D2 guy. The intro. They're being transported in like the truck thing, and they're like almost gonna be separated for a bit. But then, oh wait, no, the one like blows up out of nowhere and is like, oh, I'll just take that one then. So like they stay together. I think that is really, really awesome as well. Um, I don't know. What do you think about episode 4?
I That's second on my list. I really did enjoy it.
Hmm.
I think that was one of George Lucas's great works there. When you
Hmm.
consider that this Star Wars: A New Hope was either his like sink or swim, there would
Yes.
not have been any of the Star Wars movies if this didn't go well.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
So the amount of time and effort he put into this movie, I mean, it
Hmm.
shows and it pays off.
Oh yeah.
Uh, like you said, yeah, all the characters are great, some great chemistry, lots of mystery, a lot to be desired, uh, and we do get a taste of everything there as well. Like you said, we can relate to Luke, who comes pretty quickly, or comes to the scene pretty quickly.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, everything to that final space battle and Luke really coming through and blowing up the Death Star. So yeah, it sets the stage up really well. Although if you started off watching number four, I guess that would kind of bring in one of the biggest problems I had with number one, where it introduces a seemingly major character and then kills them off rather quickly.
Yes.
Uh, I mean, Obi-Wan originally presents himself as like some, or Obi-Wan is originally presented as some mystical, maybe like godfather or like spiritual protector to
Hmm.
Luke. And that's kind of how Uncle Owen uh, makes him seem.
Yeah.
And then
Which
Luke is almost like passed out in the desert, and he's like, "Oh, am I seeing things?" And there's um,
Ben? Old
yeah,
Ben.
exactly, old Ben there.
Hmm.
So yeah, and then I mean, really, it's just over halfway through, and he's killed by Darth Vader there. Um, it's like, oh, where's Luke going to get
That
the rest
wasn't
of his
halfway
training?
through, was it?
I think it was
That
just
wasn't halfway through. No, because
was it?
remember he did the. No, it was towards the end because they flew off in the Oh, it might. I think it was more like maybe 2/3 of the way. He was there for more than half the movie. I remember that.
Yeah, because then you have the whole scene of them blowing it up. So it's just over
Yeah,
half. It's
yeah,
over
over
it's
half.
over
Yeah,
halfway.
I think for me, episode 4 is I okay. So this might be personal bias. Now, I think it's at a point, or we're at a point right now where I want to remind people. Okay, I still love all of these movies. Okay, I'm not saying that 4 is like a 4 out of 10 or something like that. Right? I still think 4 is a phenomenal movie. Okay, I'm just comparing it to some of the other movies which I think have better action and are more fulfilling for me. I still love 4. And the reason why I love episode 4 specifically over episode 1 is because I think that the introduction is so the problem with episode 1 for me is it's kind of like the first movie to introduce like the Star Wars universe, right? If you think about it, which makes sense because like chronologically, you would watch movie 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I I didn't know about you if you watched it 4 to 6, then 1 to 3 first. I don't know how you watched it. Um, but it kind of felt like 1 for me was just like kind of recapping what we already knew about Star Wars. That being said, Star Wars is such a big universe that there were some things that weren't introduced in 4 that wasn't 1. I think was pretty interesting. Um, but I just think that it naturally has to be a slower paced film. There were some things I wasn't like the biggest fan of, but I will say I overall think that it is a pretty solid movie. And I would still recommend that people watch the franchise if you've never seen it before. I would recommend starting off with episode 4, only because the reason why I rank it higher than 1, because both of these are technically the first in a trilogy, is because 4 has a lot of mystery, right? So we were talking about how I remember vividly how Obi-Wan was talking to Luke and how he was saying that he fought in the Clone Wars. And Luke's like, you fought in the Clone Wars. We don't know much about the Clone Wars, even throughout the other 2 movies, right? Like, we don't know about them. It's not until you have to go back into the prequels and you learn what the Clone Wars is. I think that that's really interesting because it makes you want to watch more and figure things out. And I think that that is a really awesome point about it. However, for me, number 5, number 2, the second best, and the best of the original trilogy. This movie has so much into it. We get the introduction of Yoda, one of the best characters. And when you see Yoda in the prequel trilogy and you see how kind of crazy he is and like toying with Luke in episode 5, really love that bit. Like like I love seeing him crawl into Luke's like bag or something like that, like scrapping for things, and him like bickering with R2 as well. Absolutely love that, right? It's a serious moment, but for Luke, but it's also just funny for us as well. You see some little green frog like going through this guy's bag and like fighting with the robot. Absolutely hilarious. Um, I think the character growth between the rest of the crew, because this movie is kind of, if I remember correctly, because I watched this one, I watched 4 and 6 before 5 when reviewing this. Don't ask me why. This one, I believe it was the crew was kind of split up, so Luke kind of went his own way at a certain point in the movie. Um, and then it was basically like Luke, Leia, or sorry, Han, Leia, Chewie, and then the droids, and then the yeah, because Luke went with R2. I'm sorry, C3PO was with the rest of them,
Right.
um, and I like that there's kind of like 2 stories going on, right? Like there was the whole thing with Luke and or Luke with Yoda, and then Han in what's his name, Lando Calrissian, right, and in Cloud City. Love that bit. We get introduced to Boba Fett, which I'm not gonna lie, I won't lie. The Boba Fett show kind of ruined him for me. So when I did my rewatch, I kind of wasn't as like intrigued about him. I'm not gonna lie. Probably not the case. I do remember watching this movie the first time and thinking he was like the coolest character ever, right? Like not talking much, right? He has a jetpack and he's just kind of like sitting there. Absolutely love that. Okay, I've been talking a lot. What do you think of episode 5? Because I think isn't it pretty low on your list?
Yes, yeah, that is bottom of my list right there. Number
Wow.
5, I I would say would be the only one that comes close to not a bad movie, but a very average movie. I
Okay.
think it really struggles with the timing throughout the whole movie. So that
Yeah, I
whole
can see that.
Dagatha time frame. I mean, so how long is Luke there? What's going on? I mean, the movie's almost stalling with Han and Leia sitting in the Millennium Falcon inside the crater in the belly of the space worm. Uh, it's when I watch it, it's almost difficult to watch. None of it really captures my interest there. Uh, I will admit that there's some good parts. I think there's a lot more bad parts though. Uh, like you brought up, Boba Fett, he's awesome. He's
Mhm.
absolutely awesome. However, we got an entire row of mercenary bounty hunters that are on the screen for half a second.
Yeah.
I think this movie does the most disservice to uh, our friends, the droids. They
Yeah,
are
definitely.
throughout the entire movie. They are cumbersome, annoying. I don't know if I can honestly tell you like one helpful thing they did throughout the whole
I
movie.
think I think the only thing that they did was like I think R2 like fixed the Millennium Falcon that allowed it to go into hyper speed. I think that was like the only thing. 3PO, I will say I love 3PO and R2. Love them so much. Even I was getting bored. Like when they shut him off in the I was like, thank goodness. They were like overdoing it with this. Right? Like I don't know. I That's the one complaint I have about it. For me, I still get to this day the goosebumps when Darth Vader reveals that he's the dad of Luke. I still think that that's like insane. And like, okay, I hate Luke Skywalker in a sense. I kind of just don't really like him. I think he's kind of boring, kind of plain. I watch this movie and I see the growth of Anakin, aka Vader, in this one because he doesn't want to serve the Emperor, right? He doesn't want him. He doesn't like him. Like you kind of see it in this movie that he just doesn't like the Emperor. Um, Again, if we do an entire video about Vader, I can explain why. But actually, I can even talk about it in episode 3. But the reveal that he wants to like take over, like overthrow the Emperor, kind of shows that he doesn't like him. Um, and seeing how like he doesn't want to kill Luke, but he agrees to it because the Emperor says it. Like, I still think that I think that there are some scenes, yes, I think are kind of bad. Um, but there's a lot of good fight scenes. Like, I will always love the Hoth scene in the beginning. I
No.
love it because it's kind of like, yeah, why would anyone have like spider legs on a giant ship? Like who would have that? Just like, do the cord thing. I love that it's like so good that even Marvel referenced it in Civil War with Spider-Man, right? That's just right. It's so fun. Um I think that this movie is fun. It grows. I will forever love the Luke training session. I think it's probably better. I think he did a better job than Ben did, but I like how Ben still played a role in this. I'm still calling him Ben because of, that's what they call him in the movie. I like his role in the movie. I I don't know. I think that the story is pretty good. There's a lot of like cool moments where like Leia's like, I love you, and Han's like, I know. It's like that's a very Han thing to say, and I really appreciate that. Um I warned you that I would spend a lot of this episode talking about this one movie because I give it a perfect score of 10 out of 10. And it's the only movie that we haven't talked about. And that's episode 3. What was your rating of it again? Because I kind of forgot.
Episode 3 for me was middle of the pack. It was the fourth one down. Fourth one down. Five,
So
one, and then 3, starting from my least favorite. Now that's not
5,
to
1.
say I don't like it. I do believe though that the 4 or the 3 I have higher than it are better. That's my
Okay.
stance on it right now. Now what's
Okay.
what's your rundown?
Okay. So for context, we didn't watch these movies together. The only one we watched together was episode 3. I was losing my mind because of how much I love this movie. Okay. We start off with an insane fight scene, right, in space, where there's some comedy going around, right? Um, love the comedy between Anakin and Obi-Wan. Love it, right? Um, but from right away, right, with Dooku being killed by Anakin, but being told by the Emperor, that moment right there kind of sets up the entire movie, right? I like I said, I'm a big Anakin kind of person. I think that's one of the reasons why I don't like much of the sequel trilogy is because there's just no Anakin there. Um, for me, this is the breaking point, right? This is where he becomes Darth Vader. The Jedi Order falls. The Republic falls. Um, the clones turn on the Jedi. Everyone basically dies, right? Even the younglings. There's a lot in this movie. Like, if you think about like what happened in this movie, it could be quite a lot for one movie. However, I think that the the fight scenes are amazing. Okay, love it. The transition from Anakin to Vader is really apparent from the beginning, and I think that that's a focus point of the movie, right? Is seeing how he becomes Darth Vader, but you realize that Darth Vader's not actually a bad guy. He's being manipulated not only by the Emperor, but also by the Jedi Council as well, because they don't have trust in him. I know that there was a scene where Palpatine elected him a Jedi Master, right? And they were like, "You're on the council, but not a master." It's like, how does that make sense? That's never happened before, right? It's like, yeah, how does that make sense? Like they're treating him poorly. Heck, even his own master is like saying, "Well, just get over it, right? Just do what you're supposed to do, right?" I think as this is a growth movie for Anakin, or I should say a degrowth, this is an insanely high growth for Obi-Wan because everything he believed in like went down. If you think about it, right? He raised Anakin. He was like a brother to him. Went down. He lost Anakin, lost the Jedi Council, has to go into hiding. And I think that the movie is really about those two. I know you're not a fan of the fight scene between Anakin and Obi-Wan at the end.
All right, we
Can you? Why?
I think throughout the whole uh, uh, all the prequel movies, so 1 through 3, or I guess two and 3 to be precise. There, we're constantly hearing like Anakin is somehow besting Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Mhm.
Uh, and one of them, I think Anakin says, "Oh, Master, I've saved you 9 or 10
Yeah.
times," um, and we kind of see that at the start of number 3, where I mean Count Dooku's really or is able to best Obi-Wan Kenobi, but then Anakin's the one able to take him down. So that whole logic just doesn't sit quite well with me. I'll give you that it's a very visually appealing fight scene,
It's not
and
even visually appealing. The thing that's better about I told you this was happening. I told not only the audience, I told you when we were watching I'm gonna do this to you, okay? The entire thing is Obi-Wan knows Anakin is too impatient. He doesn't have the patience. He knows that. Anakin was taking shots and hits that he shouldn't have been throwing. He knew that he was basically doing exactly what Obi-Wan was doing, right? And I know you don't like this because I sent you a tweet, but it was confirmed that one of the moves that Anakin did was actually inspired by Obi-Wan's the jump over. So the scene where Obi-Wan's like, "I have the high ground," and Anakin makes a jump. He thought he could do it because of the story that Obi-Wan told him. I sent that to him, and he was like, "I don't believe it. It's not true." And I'm like, he literally confirmed that that is the reason why he did it. It just goes to show that Obi-Wan is fighting a more arrogant version of himself in this movie. So yes, you're right. He can't beat Count Dooku. He knows how to fight himself, though, right? Because he trained Anakin. He knows how to fight himself, but he also knows that he is, too impatient. He thinks too quickly, right? He thinks on his feet, not with his brain, right? That's what he does. So you don't like the fight scene. It makes perfect sense as to why. I don't understand why you don't like it. I'll let you go. I need a minute.
Yeah, it almost seems like the fight should have been over before they got to the whole "Oh, Anakin, I have the high ground." And I see what you mean, like kind of fighting a clone of himself. But keep in mind that Anakin, I mean, is using the power of the dark side. So I want to say he's
But that's making him more aggressive. That's the thing. They've already talked about how Anakin is already more impatient. Like Yoda said that in the beginning. This is now he's embracing the dark side. This is making him even more like, what's the word? Not unstable. More arrogant, right? Like he's like taking, like he's like hitting the like hits he shouldn't be. That's the reason why. Like he's already like this, but now with the dark side, he's like this now. And Obi-Wan knows that, and he knows that he was arrogant. He knew that he would try and take the jump. He knew that. It's not like, oh, he's just gonna float away. No, he knew he was gonna take the jump, and he did it anyway. He knew that.
oh sure, sure. But I'm not buying the argument that oh he's just fighting a clone of himself, so I mean he knows his every move. I mean,
No, he's not gonna know his every move, but he
right.
knows that Anakin is too overconfident. He knows that. He knows that Anakin plays with his strength, not his mind. And you can see it. You can see that I will give you credit. The hits that Anakin has on Obi-Wan, it seems like he is putting more muscle into it, right? However, Obi-Wan is playing it more smart. That's where I think you're wrong. And of course, there's the obvious. We have to explain how he's in the suit in episode 4. There's the obvious, but like not even including that. This movie, I think, perfect context. We can even go to that scene. We see the suit up of Darth Vader, which, outside of the fact that that is so cool in itself, we get to see a contrast of Luke and Leia being born, the nice, bright, vibrant, like, polished surfaces, compared to the dark, like everything made out of dark steel and black, like metals in the one thing. And he's like kicking and screaming, right? Like the contrast between those two is honestly really insane. I think that the storytelling in this movie is phenomenal. It's an easy story to follow, right? Like you have the good guys and the bad guys, right? They need to find what is his name? The robot dude. Gosh, I forget. I remember her name. It's the robot dude who collects the lightsabers. They need to collect
Oh,
him because he's
Grievous.
leaning. Grievous, yes.
Yes,
They need
yeah.
to find him. That's like the main story. But then there's a side story of like the Emperor is actually, or Palpatine is actually the Sith Lord, right? The fight scenes between him and like Mace Windu and the other 4 Jedis. I can agree. Some people say that it's kind of weird that he's able to take 4 out of the 5 like pretty easily. Could also just be that Mace Windu is that strong. Plus, I'm pretty sure Mace Windu has been confirmed to like use to draw power from the dark side, even though he's a Jedi. I'm not too familiar though, but I can understand that. And you can see I love the confliction between. Well, like one of my favorite bits is when Mace Windu is about to kill the Emperor, right? And the Emperor is like, "Don't do it," or "Save me, Anakin. I can save Padme for you." Um, and then Mace Windu is like, "Oh, but he's too dangerous to be let alive." Even though the Jedi code, right, the thing that Mace Windu has told Anakin himself that he needs to follow, he's not following, and he's about to kill this guy, right? So in his mind, he's doing the right thing by following the Jedi code. So technically, Anakin never left the Jedi code, if you think about it. Um,
At,
but
in that moment, sure.
in that moment, sure, yeah, not like outside. No, in the moment, he believed he was doing the right thing by not killing, right? Like he was told never to kill. That's what he did, and he believed that, right? Um, the entire movie follows Anakin being conflicted, and that is the best part, right? You see the heartbreak of Anakin between Obi-Wan and as well Padme as well, which was kind of surprising when I first watched it. Like, why wouldn't you believe your wife? However, when you consider the fact that the people who have been training you since you grew up, you believe that, or you've been told that they've been lying to you by someone, and then you also kind of start to believe it because they don't trust you and they've told you that. It's kind of conflicting, right? Like, I wouldn't know what to do in that situation, right? I wouldn't know who to trust. um but I know there's one thing. We were on call when we talked about this, and I told you that there's actually a real life thing for it. The way that Padme dies in the movie, the ending. You don't like it. I originally didn't like it either, right? The whole, like, she died, like, she's perfectly healthy, but for some reason we're losing her, right? So apparently it was confirmed, or it wasn't. It was never confirmed that the reason she died was because of a lack of will to live. Apparently, that's never been confirmed. However, it's heavily theorized. Now, that's actually a legitimate issue. That's a thing that's happened before, where you just don't have the will to live anymore. Now, you might be asking, how does that make sense? Well, in the span of a day, okay, the span of a day, the republic that she knew fell apart. Her husband not only choked her, right, also killed younglings, right, attacked their best friend, Obi-Wan, and there was one more I was gonna say. Where is it? I don't think I wrote it down. There was one more thing. All of this happened in the span of a day. A day. Could you imagine if that happened to you? Now, to me, is it still a little bit weird? Yeah, maybe. I think it's justified though. If I was married, if I was married to someone, and she was like a serial killer who killed like children and like took down like the government or something like that, I would probably be conflicted about who I marry to, right? I can understand that. I
And then you'd lose the will to live. To
I
lay
mean,
down
maybe
on
I
your
don't.
bed
I
and be
don't
like,
know.
"Hey,
It's
there's the towel. I'm done. I'm
it's a
ready
real
to
thing,
die.
though, bro.
Just take me now."
Bro, I googled it. It's a real thing. That's happened to people before, though. Like, that's like a real thing. So it's like, I understand it. I can understand it, bro. That's all I'm saying. If Ash like was a serial killer at night, I would be surprised. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I understand it though. I understand, and I think that I can appreciate it. And obviously, there's the fact that she just has to die because we don't see her. A lot of this movie is
Yeah,
basically like
it's
a lot of
gotta
this movie
make
is
way
just,
for number
yeah,
four. Yeah, yeah,
like it
yeah.
just it has to happen, right? So some of it, right, it might not have been perfect, but some of it just had to happen, right? Padme had to die, right? Why wasn't she in episode 4? Had to happen. Um, I still think that we see a decent bit of the droids. I don't think we see as much, because this is definitely a more serious movie. Um, I I love this movie. There's so many details about it as well. Like, you get to see Jar Jar Binks, right? This is you were talking about it in
Right.
the first one, or when we were talking about episode 1. You get to see him now in this one, right? Um, taking place, or taking Padme's place. Um, I think that I also just like the scenery of this movie. I feel like there's a lot of good, like, there's a lot of good places that this takes place, right? I love Mustafar. I think that that's one of the best Star Wars planets we've seen. I like the lava, and it makes sense with the emotions that, like, it's like basically erupting as Anakin's emotions are actively like erupting. I think
Yeah.
that makes I think that's fun. It's the last time we ever see Coruscant as well. I'm actually really sad we didn't get to see more of Coruscant. I think that's part of the reason why I like the movie so much, or the prequels. I love Coruscant personally. I think it's like really cool.
I
Um,
Unless you mean um like chronologically in how they were released, but I think we see that at the end of six again. Aren't they all celebrating the destruction of the second Death Star, or am I remembering other
no,
planets that
Coruscant.
they?
Coruscant is the where the Jedi Temple was. Remember?
Right, right, but
That wasn't on the
don't
planet.
don't we see some
They might.
surrounding?
They, I don't think so. They might
Okay,
mention it, and we might see the planet, but like we don't actually see like the actual like we're not on the planet. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, okay, yeah, we don't see the city itself.
Yeah, like I like the city of Coruscant. I think that's um I think it's a nice one. I would give this is the only Star Wars movie I would give a 10 out of 10. Like it actually got to the point where I had to make jokes about the movie because I like couldn't handle my own emotions watching this. And you can testify. I couldn't deal with it. Um but it's a good thing. Like I went to bed that night and I'm like, damn, this movie is good. I'm like, wow, this is such a good movie. Um
I
so I've talked about why I like it. I need to hear why you don't like it.
All right. I think you also have to rectify the fact here real quick. So Anakin, we see him kind of originally with, um, I guess Palpatine at the time, sitting in the theater,
Hmm.
um, be like, "Hey, I just want to save Padme," and so we have this guy totally strung out for love here for Padme, and I mean, is it within that same day where he's killing younglings and just going on an absolutely like mad rampage, and destroying the entire
I don't know
temple?
if the same day. I have no idea.
It seems like a very very drastic change. So I mean, yes, he's in distress, and we know he's meant to like lash out in anger, but
Hmm.
he was just fighting for Palpatine's life because it wasn't the Jedi way. And
Yep.
then all of a sudden, like he is complete 180, going off the deep end. I want to say that's a little far fetched, a little stretched, something that just I don't know if you can quite relate to.
Well, we can't. There's no magical force to bring people back, right? There's
Right.
nothing, right? I'm sure that there's someone. I know there's someone for me that I would want to bring back to life, right? Now, would I ever kill younglings and destroy an entire like republic government to bring that person back? No. But when you didn't even know that that was a possibility, right? Because the council hid that from you. Yeah, it does make sense, right? Um, and I also just think that I mean, in this movie especially, we see that the questioning of is he the chosen one, right? Does
Right.
he bring balance to the light side or bring balance to the force, right? Um, because yeah, Qui-Gon said that he was, right? And we kind of get the whole Darth Plagueis could manipulate midichlorians, right? Um and kind of like somewhat hinting that Palpatine is the dad, like somewhat. Um but it's like what do you do? Like you feel bad, right? Because like would you ever, if you had a wife, would you ever like choke her out? Probably not. I would hope not. You wouldn't. I know I wouldn't. But um, when every single person in your life was like has been basically manipulating you, right? Maybe except for if you think about like the Clone Wars, I don't think Ahsoka ever did. I in the movies, I don't think Padme ever did. But when every single person has manipulated you, you start to like not know who to trust, right? So when you conveniently like, yes, we know that Palpatine planted the visions in his head, right? Like he didn't just think that of himself, right? Same thing with the mother, right? That was all Palpatine, right? Like we know that he did that. Well, maybe not, but it's kind of hinted that we know. Um, but to him, the person who's telling him conveniently that, hey, there's a way to like save life, right? That's manipulation, right? He's getting what he wants, right? And we even hint about it that soon there'll be a new Sith apprentice, right? Like Palpatine says that, or I guess technically the Emperor says that technically when he was talking to, I believe, Grievous, or no, it was the people
What?
on Mustafar.
Right.
Yeah, I forget those names, but it was them. I like, look, does this, like, if this happened to anyone in real life, would I say that they're, normal person should be forgiven? No. However, in this is a movie, feel sympathy for him, right? Because if you think about it, the people who he spent his life trying to, like, train with don't trust him, right? They said that they don't trust him. His master takes the side of the Jedi over him, and now this guy is using him for his powers. And I I even think, I know we said we're not talking about anything other than the movies, but part of the reason I said earlier that Vader doesn't like the Emperor, this is one of the reasons why, right? Because, like, it was, oh, I actually don't know it, but we could find it out together, right? Like, I know he said that. Um but another thing is that Vader was actually punished for losing on Mustafar. I don't know if you know this, but Darth Vader's armor is actually um poorly designed, but purposefully.
Yeah.
Like, he is feeling pain with most of his movements, right? Like needles jabbing into him and stuff like that. Again, it's purposeful. Um and I think that this all stems back from this movie, because we get to really see, yeah, you're right, Anakin is really powerful, but he could still be controlled, and he can easily be taken down. And I think that out of all the movies, right, there's a lot of like emotions and of course action. I think this has the best action, but even aside from action, um, I think that this just has some of the best storytelling, right? Like, you can vouch for me. I was losing it. Like, I was like in tears when he stormed the Jedi Temple, right? When Obi-Wan watched the tapes, right? When he did the choking to Padme, right? I was like in tears, because it's like you're seeing like so many friendships die in the span of like 25 minutes, right? Like, it's not even like, in the beginning Obi-Wan attacks him, or like he attacks Padme, and then an hour. No, it's like in 20 minutes, like all of this just happens like at once. It's a lot. I don't think any of the other Star Wars movies does that, and that's why for me it's number one. Um, I watched episode 5 the other day, and I thought about it for a good hour, and I was able to get over it. We watched the episode 3. I thought about that for a day and a half after we finished watching it. So basically 2 days after, I was still thinking about it. Like, it is such a good movie for me. 10 out of 10. Episode 5, which is number 2 on my list, probably an 8.5. Like, that's a big increase between 2 and 1, right? Like, you
For
might not
sure.
like it, but for me, the storytelling that it has, the and if you realize, I still think to this day, as far as like not like real life stuff, so don't take this for like real life stuff, but as far as any franchise, there's no 2 words, or I guess one sentence, we'll say. There's no sentence that like stings more than execute order 66. I mean, you're
Exactly.
not going to convince me.
Exactly.
Execute Order 66. Everything went to crap. I mean, especially, we need to do a video where we talk about the entire like Clone Wars era, because especially if you watch like the Clone Wars, or even Star Wars Rebels with Ahsoka, like that moment messed a lot of things up. Like, you don't realize how much it messed up. And then if you watch like Kenobi, right, the aftermath of that messed a lot of things up, right? Execute Order 66 has never, like, it is like the biggest thing that's ever happened. Like, I think it's more important and significant to me than the Thanos snap. Me personally,
That is
I think it had
bold.
more effect.
That is
Like,
bold.
the Thanos it was good, but Execute Order 66 had so much that was going on, and I think that's why I like Star Wars. Like, it's gotten a lot of hate over the past couple of years. Um, I know a lot of people aren't liking the Acolyte. I haven't watched it. I don't really like it either. Um, well, I don't like the story that has gone. I'm not a big fan of, like, Boba Fett. I still think we've had a lot of good stories, but I think Obi-Wan Kenobi is an underrated show. I'm glad we're getting a second season. Ahsoka, again, another one where you get to see the effects of Anakin, right? Like that was so good. I also want to see more live action Hayden Christensen as Anakin. I'm just saying. But I think that episode 3 is the best conclusion out of any of the trilogies, right? So including the sequel, including the original. I think that this is the best closing to any of them, me personally.
I don't think we get a closing though. I
Well,
I don't think
it's
there's a
Star Wars. It's never
closing.
a closing. It's Star Wars. It's never a closing. But
Well,
it's the end of the prequel. It's the end of the Clone Wars era.
well, taking into account number 6, I mean that's a perfect conclusion to a story. The Death Star was
Yeah.
blown up. Just about everyone's happy. We got Anakin and Obi-Wan and Yoda, Force Ghosts. Um,
Bro,
Luke,
that was the no,
Leia,
no,
and
no.
Han
That was
are
the happy
happy.
ending.
That
That was
is
the
a
happy ending.
conclusion.
That was the happy ending. This is the villain's victory here. You see Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader looking out of the Star Destroyer in this movie. This is not like a happy ending. This isn't a I don't mean a conclusion to Star Wars as a whole. This is the best conclusion to to a trilogy of Star Wars. Right? Because now we're going into the next one. This is like a dark moment. Like so much just happened, and now look at this. The heroes won. This is the Thanos of this one, right? This is the Thanos one, right? Like there's no like the good guys didn't win, right? That's why I say this is better than for me Avengers Infinity War. I know, very controversial. But that movie ended, right, with Thanos, he snapped half the people away. Good guys lost, right? That was it. Movie ended, right? See you next year, right? This one, it was yeah, everything went like everything crumbled, right? Like people died, but like the entire Jedi Order like went down. Like that's it.
So,
Republic went down, is now the Empire. This is
so like an
sorry.
example, Obi-Wan says, "What about the rest of the Jedi scattered throughout the galaxy?" So there's loose ends here that we're just not tying up. I mean,
Well,
and,
but
and
you
then
get
you're
to
like,
see more.
okay, so
But you
what's
see more of that. That's the thing. You get to see more of that because if all the Jedi just went away, then that's it. That's like they just won forever, right? But they're still like they still need to find all the Jedi. We see this in Obi-Wan, right? Like they know that there's more Jedi out there, right? In Obi-Wan Kenobi or the show, they Vader specifically wants Kenobi, but like they talk about how this other Jedi. It's not like hey, that's just it. We did everything. We won now. This is like yeah, we're now the Empire. This is like that's the Clone Wars era done, right? Now we're into the Empire era. That's what I mean. I don't mean like, the end of like Star Wars. I mean, this is the end of an era. Now we're in the Empire, right? This is now Rogue One. We're in all this. This is
I mean, so in episode 6 we get like, so in contrast, episode 6, Yoda's like, "Hey, if you lose this, you're the last Jedi, so like don't screw this up." But in episode 3 we're like, "Oh, there's more? Where are they? Are they coming? What's going on? Oh, Obi-Wan's gonna band together with the rest of the Jedi." Oh, nope. We get Princess Leia getting captured aboard her ship, and the droids getting shot down to Tatooine. So I can't agree that it's a good conclusion. I think
I
it's an
disagree with you.
end. I think it's an end, but I don't know if good conclusion. I mean, and then
No, you don't understand what I'm saying. It's not okay, fine. As a movie, maybe for the movie part, because I guess we're talking about the movies, I can understand your point of view. When we get to like the different trilogies, because I really need to do an episode where we talk about the trilogies, right? Where we talk about like everything, like the Clone Wars, it's like Star Wars, like the movies, like Rogue One, like everything, like not just strictly because it's hard. Star Wars is one of those things. It's hard to only talk about the movies, right?
sure.
It's really hard. So if we're basing this, I'll give this to you. If we're basing it just off the movies, I would say I still like it over episode 6, but I think it's not perfect in that sense. However, if you're thinking about it as a story, it is a great it's the best conclusion to that we could have gotten because you're right, there's more Jedi. That's what the Empire is doing. They're taking over. They're trying to find all the remaining Jedi and completely wipe them. That's their goal. That's what they're trying to do. They're not just wandering around like, sipping pina coladas because they won, right? They're like actively doing something. That's what they're doing. So fine. When movie wise, yes, it's not the best. Like actual like story wise, I think it's the best one we could have gotten because it sets up more stories.
Yeah, I I think this is we see kind of the some of the worst Jedi fight scenes in this movie as well. And what I mean by that, with
Yeah,
Palpatine and Yoda, Yoda straight
that
up
one.
dips from
Yeah,
that fight there. He doesn't seem like he's losing. He doesn't seem like he's losing that fight against Palpatine. Um,
yeah.
like
Again, it
not
again.
necessarily winning, but
The answer is he has to stay alive. That's the answer. He has to stay alive because he's in episode 5 and 6. That's the answer. Some of again, like some of them is just like it just has to happen, right? It just has to, right? Like Obi-Wan has to survive, um, right? Like Padme has to die, right? Like Anakin has to burn to become Darth Vader. It just has to happen, right? So yes, it might not be perfect. It had to happen though. There was no like leaving it there.
yeah, see, it's just too much plot armor. There's too much plot
Mm-mm,
armor, and like I understand that it had to, but it just
mm-mm.
doesn't help the movie in of itself. Just it's so constricted.
It's supposed to show that fight scene. I agree, but it's supposed to show how powerful the emperor is, right, and how the Sith are, right? Because he's really powerful. Um, I don't, I don't, I agree. It's still the best movie. I'm still giving it a 10 out of 10. Like you can't say anything. You saw my reaction. I think you even know you're not gonna convince me to change it. Like any of the other movies, sure. Like you can convince episodes like 5 and like the rest, like that. Yeah, maybe that you can change that for me. You're never changing episode 3 for me. I think you know that. Like deep down, you're never changing episode 3 out of first place,
Oh,
man.
all right, yeah, not a bad movie. I think it's got some bad parts in it. So I can't put it as number one, and I'm not saying that two doesn't have some bad parts either. I think number two is a little bit more redeemable, but that's where I
I
stand.
I think part of it for me as well. And if we quickly rank, I want to quickly now kind of dive into all of it. We went really specific with each movie. I want to quickly ask you, in a small sense, because again, we might do a video on this. What would you rank each trilogy, right? Like, what would you rank them? Like, which one do you prefer more? Because I overall, I mean, the fact that in my top three are two from the prequel and only one from the original like series, I think for me that's why I've got to say the prequels. Um, what do you think? Do you prefer the originals or do you prefer the prequel trilogy?
See, that's a tough question because five was just was really not great for me.
Hmm.
So if I could eliminate that one, I definitely say the original, four through six.
No, but you have to do it.
Yeah,
All three movies have to be included.
I'd probably, well, two is my favorite there. That's a tough one to look past. Yeah, I'd still go with the original four through six.
Okay, that's interesting. I think that and again, for the third and last time, I want to emphasize I don't hate any of these movies, right? I don't
Right.
think that any of them are utter garbage. I love all of these movies. I honestly love 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 pretty equally, honestly. Like if I was gonna rate each of them out of 10, they would all relatively be in the same spot. Episode 3 for me is just so good. I have to rate it 10 out of 10. Some people might not like it, and you know, rightfully so. It's my opinion. I'm not gonna debate anybody, right? It's between me and you. Um, I think that for me, I like the prequel trilogy more. I feel like it's just more interesting. I'm not a fan of the whole like I don't know. I like the Force and the Jedi and like the lightsabers, and I feel like we don't get enough of that in start in the original trilogy, right? But like we have like multiple different fight scenes between there's not really the Sith per se, but like the like lightsaber duels. I feel like there's more in the prequels, right? The Battle of Genosha, right, in episode 2, right?
Right, right.
Um, Loved that one. That was a really good part. Obi-Wan Kenobi fight. I know you don't like it. I love the. I think that that's the best fight in the entire trilogy. Um, the fight between Yoda and I would say the first half is pretty cool. Once Palpatine starts throwing the chairs, it's kind of whatever. Um, the what else? The fight between what's his name, Dooku and Anakin, kind of a small one. I like that one in the beginning though. And I like how you can like the portrayal of Dooku as well. Like you kind of see like, well, I just lost. Right, there's no turning back. Like I'm a pawn in the Emperor's game. I feel like for me, the first three are just better in my opinion. I like the story more. I would. I just really don't like Luke Skywalker. I think he's just so incredibly boring, and that's so hard to say when the entire like movie is about him. Basically, like the entire trilogy is about him. Right? It's called the Skywalker Saga. It's supposed to be about the Skywalkers. I feel like Luke is kind of boring. Now, granted, better than a certain someone who's not a Skywalker. But I think Anakin for me is just the best. And like like the fact that I watched episode 5 and 6 and I still think about Anakin more than Luke is like not that good. I don't love it. But I still think that I think that's also the glory of Star Wars, right? Like each trilogy has something to offer. If you like more character growth and not as much action, then the original trilogy is for you, right? If you're like me and you kind of like action and as well like character growth, the prequels are really good, right? If you like garbage, then episode 7 to 9 is for you, right? That's just how it is.
That is true.
And I will forever love Star Wars. I think you know one of the things I absolutely love, and you know I don't know. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I think you do have to take into consideration with 4 through 6 coming out first. 1 through 3 really has to set up the Force
Yeah,
in a way, and it definitely is a different style of movie.
yeah,
Uh, like you're saying with the whole Skywalker saga, that really almost is your like stereotypical
mhm,
archetypal uh, villain hero story, and
yeah,
it's done really well. It's done really
yeah,
really well.
hmm
Um, I would say that even I mean, the CGI will be a little bit better in 1 through 3, so we'll see a lot more of the visually appealing scenes. They have a little bit more to work with at least.
but I think that's also one of the reasons I like that appeal of Star Wars. Like
Right, right, right.
it's very goofy, right? Like especially the original trilogy. It's very goofy, but that's honestly part of the experience, right? That's the Star Wars experience, right? And I also just feel like part of it is, I know we said we're not talking about episodes 7 through 9. They look too good. I don't like the lightsabers in them. I hate like they look too clean, right? Like I like the kind of like rustic like I'm just not a fan of it looks like too clean and that's bad. It's bad to say, right? They look good, but that's kind of like it looks just like every other like modern movie, right? Like it shouldn't like I like the kind of like weird like things and like even like seeing Yoda in episode 5, you can tell that was a puppet, right?
Oh, right.
Like that's part of the appeal. Like don't get me wrong, I love Yoda in the prequels, but man, it's just goofy to see him as like a puppet in episodes 5 and 6, right? Um like so much so that it's so weird to see the CGI version of him in the prequels or no sorry the sequels, right? Where he's like an old like ghost thing but he's not the puppet anymore. It's like kind of weird to see that. So um I don't know, I know that we said we're not talking about episodes 7 through 9. I think we should still just briefly touch upon why. In case we never do an episode about why they suck, we should do a brief summary as to why they suck.
I will give you that great honor. I will not touch them.
Um. Okay, so for me, I know a lot of people say Force Awakens is good. It's honestly copy and paste of episode 4, but like works. I like don't care for the characters. It was cool to see everyone return. I guess like Luke is when even Mark Hamill himself says that that's not even Luke Skywalker. That's saying something. Um, like they ruined Luke in this movie. I think Kylo Ren is interesting because he's like kind of wanting to be Darth Vader, but he's like I know. The thing that I liked about Darth Vader is like he was never really a bad guy, right? And I feel like
Right,
with
right.
Kylo Ren, they try and do that where he's like, he's like bouncing back and forth between being good and bad. I don't like that he's bouncing back and forth, right? Like, like Darth Vader, like, he wasn't truly evil, but he played that way because of the Emperor, right? Like, I at least appreciate that. Like, he literally couldn't do anything to take him over, right? Because again, of his suit, the way it was designed. Kylo Ren just kind of like I don't know. It's not that good. I don't know. And then I love me the Emperor, but man, the whole like Snoke was just a clone of that whole thing was like I'm never going to forget that meme of what's his name, Poe, where he's like somehow the Emperor returned. Like I don't know, just somehow the Emperor returned. Um I don't like them. I think that I remember seeing episode 9 in theaters, and there was the whole like you see or like you hear that the all the things going into Rey, like the first ghost and being like, "You're the last Jedi," something like that. And then I'm just like, what? How does this make sense? This has never happened before. This is dumb. How is this guy still alive? It's been like hundreds of years or something. It feels like. Um,
Yeah. All right.
I don't know.
That's
I'm
probably all we got to mention about those there.
Yeah, no.
Almost
And
was better if they had not been released. But hey,
I still think that they don't that they haven't. I think a lot of people think that they haven't. But I think that goes to show how good the first two trilogies were
exactly, exactly.
and
There's
how
really something
loved
special
they are.
there. Yeah.
There is. I mean, I will never not watch these movies and think of a bad. Like even some of the worst. Maybe not you. You seem very critical of it. I think, but there's not like I can watch all these movies even through the flaws I've been saying and like still have a good time, right? Um, I'm not gonna like episode 1. It's kind of boring. I'm not gonna like sleep my way through it, right? Like I enjoy it. I find the good things that I like about it, right? And I get excited for the things that I like. Um, and I would say the fact that all of these movies except for episode 3, which is like way above them, are all pretty equal to me, considering like the how many like 4 or 5 decades apart that they were filmed in.
All right.
I think it's pretty good, right? I think that they're fun, a lot of fun. Stories, they set up a lot of stories as well. Um, I still would say Star Wars is probably still my favorite franchise. Um, Marvel is pretty good. Never watched DC. I love Star Wars a lot. I don't know. Do you have any final words?
I think before we close this out, we've got to offer the favorite scene and your least favorite scene from episodes 1 through 6. Start off with
So
your
like
least favorite. Like
like least favorite from each movie, like overall, like
overall, taking into account
oh,
everything. What scene when you watch just like, oh, that is just so cringy, or that is so bad.
mm, wow, that is hard. Oh, that is such a hard question. What? Oh, um,
I'm probably looking at the initial opening scene from The Empire Strikes Back when Luke is riding out on Hoth and um, he encounters the
Oh, yeah.
Wampa, and he is somehow iced to the ceiling. And if you're watching it, like starting the movies from 4, 5, then 6, and then back to 1, 2, he's automatically just like telekinesis, lightsaber from the snow, cuts himself loose. It just turns out to be such a like, almost cringy scene, waste of time. You're like, this gave me nothing for Luke.
I think
This
the
was
only
awful.
thing it gave wasn't that the first time we see him like force grab something.
I know, but it hasn't been introduced yet. It was never like really introduced in
I think that's the only reason why it was in the movie was to like introduce that thing. But like that could have waited honestly until
exactly,
later on. Because later
exactly.
on they talk about lifting the wand. I don't know. That
It's
was a scene.
yeah, it's
Ah,
just weird and just seems out of place. It's like this wasn't needed.
oh, what's a scene for me? Mm, I think for me it's the scene in episode 2 where they're going up the elevator and they're talking about all like the battles that they've been on and we like don't know what they were. And that one was just kind of like an awkward kind of thing because like I don't think we still know about them because Clone Wars takes place after episode 2 and before
Oh
episode
right,
3. So
yeah.
the show, so it's not like it's even explained there. I mean, it might have. I maybe there's like some details I'm not remembering, but that one was kind of like a wait, what is that? That elevator ride could have just been cut out entirely. I think that's my least favorite. Um,
I the only thing I'd say, and it's real quick, I almost think you need that scene because where number one leaves off and where number two tries to join. I'm not saying it was done well. I'm saying that like a scene similar to that needs to be put in there just to
yeah,
show a bond between
yeah, but it
Anakin
could have
and
been
number
like
one.
something else. Yeah, I
Right, right,
agree.
right, right.
Especially as no, I understand that someone who loves Anakin and like that's why I love the that's why I voted the prequels overall over the original trilogy. I love their dynamic. That for me was just kind of weird. It was like you could have done something else.
Yeah.
Um, like that one. Okay, okay, okay. Best moment out of all 6. Oh, I have mine. What's yours?
I'm still thinking here. This that is hard.
That is the hardest question I think we've ever, like. I think that's the hardest. That's harder than any question I've taken on any like test or quiz.
All right, if you have yours, go for it, and
No, I want to
then
hear
I'll be
yours.
ready.
Or do you not have one yet?
I do not
Do you
have
not
one
have one?
yet.
Okay,
I'm
okay,
still
okay.
weighing several options here.
It's for me. I've kind of already teased this. Gotta be Execute Order 66. I mean, that is like the coldest line for me in all of the movies, right? Like that's the beginning of the end. Like that's quite literally. Like I know that like he converted Anakin beforehand, but like now the entire galaxy is affected at this point. All the clones are just like whoop, they're dead. Like or not dead, but they're like evil now, right? Like no. Best moment for me. And it's also the saddest moment. That would be the saddest moment for me too. If you were going to ask the saddest moment. What about you? Not like cringiest, not like funniest. It has to be like actual like good one. Like, oh my goodness, I still think about this to this day.
I'm getting stuck on the final scene of number 6 where Vader's picking up the Emperor
Hmm.
and throwing him over the rail to save Luke. That right there is such a really amazing turnaround,
Yep.
a great conclusion.
Agreed.
Yeah, and you really feel like, oh, this is this is it. This is how the movie's got to end here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would say a close
it's a little
second for me.
cliche. It's a little cliche, and like you got to pick the ending as your favorite, but it's very, very well
Actually,
done.
my second favorite is actually the proper ending of that film, and that's the Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda all appearing as Force Ghosts.
Yep,
That for me is that's a close second. Um,
absolutely.
like seeing all of I that was close second. Um,
I don't know if you noticed. I'm sure you did, but I've just got to say it. So all of the ghosts kind of appeared when they died, and then you have Anakin
yep,
Skywalker. You know, when he dies and becomes Darth Vader, that's
yep.
that's when he appears. I mean that writing is absolutely genius. To
Oh yeah. Mhm.
to have him not appear as some old guy or whatever. That's
Which I mean, do you know the original story about how he was originally an old guy?
no. Yeah, yeah, you'll have to.
Oh, so before Hayden Christensen was Anakin, they had some I don't know his name, but they had some other person, like an older guy around the age of like Obi-Wan that he would be, being Anakin. And then when they casted Hayden, because that was the last like true moment, I guess, of Vader or of Anakin, they CGI'd him in over the other dude.
Really? Oh, that's
Um,
very cool.
yeah, so that's something that I like to I like to point out. Um, like I said, I want to end off. I know that this is something I've said so many times today, like I think 3 or 4 times, but I don't know about you, Andrew. I don't hate any of these movies, right?
Oh, right.
I don't think that
I'm right
any
there
of these
with
are
you.
like garbage. Um, I watch all these movies probably on a year basis. Like I watch like all like I'll just have like a period. I'm like, yep, here's this week. I'm gonna watch all Star Wars movies, right? Bang, 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 go. And I always have a good time. Um, and I think that no matter what you think of the movies, um, I think we can all agree sequel trilogy doesn't exist, and Star Wars ends at Episode 6.
Agreed.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to say before we call it there, or what do you think?
I think that's pretty good. Hopefully, we
I think
gave
that's
the
pretty
viewers
good.
what they came for.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. What do you guys think of the Star Wars prequel and original trilogies? What do you guys rank the movies in order? Editors note, add in the final review of our movies here somewhere, both of ours. Let us know what you guys think. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this episode of the Screen Freaks podcast. I want to thank you so much for joining. Have a great rest of your day or night, wherever it may be. And thank you so much for joining us.
All right. See ya.